Hello, good evening, and assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I'd just like to give a brief introduction of myself before going on to speak about the issues that face Brent and Harrow residents. And these issues face all Londoners. And also, I'll be talking about why next year's mayoral election is very important. Now, many of you here know me quite well, but for those of you who don't, I was born in Brent, I was educated in Brent, and I was brought up here and I worked here in Brent. And I was born to a Muslim family who have instilled in me hardworking, relentless work ethic. And also, they've given me strong values. And these two elements have been key to my upbringing, and they've seen me through some very challenging times in my life. I've always been inclined towards helping people, and that's possibly why I chose to study a career in medicine. However, that all changed when I was 17 years old, and I became incredibly ill, and my whole life perspective changed. And I decided to study politics instead. And I graduated in international politics in 2009. Since 2014, I've been involved more in grassroots campaigns on various issues, and I've been writing my own blog as well on political matters. And I became involved with George Galloway's campaign earlier this year in summer. And I've traveled all across London, and I've spoken to various people from all sections of the community. And they've all got the same concerns that we have here in Brent and Harrow. And the main concern that always keeps coming up, the biggest issue, is housing, specifically social and affordable housing. Now, many of the housing developments in Brent and in Harrow are luxury apartments which are out of the reach of most ordinary Londoners. Most people simply cannot afford them. And I know there's people here tonight who've spoken to the council about many issues, but the council just seems disengaged and doesn't want to, address those issues adequately. They don't talk to people, they don't consult them properly, and they just do whatever they want to do. And they think that people don't have a choice. But in this mayoral election, we do have a choice. I know there's people here who've run campaigns on local issues like parking. There's been a big problem about the closure of the libraries in Brent, and the council has done nothing to resolve those issues. We were in Walthamstow with George earlier on this month actually, and we came across this demonstration where many Labour members were taking part, and they were frustrated with the Labour council. And they always said the same thing, that the Labour council is not paying attention to our needs, and they're just riding roughshod over any demands that they have, and they're not listening to any of the concerns of the people. Now, this kind of disengagement and this kind of apathy with local communities will be actively discouraged in a London for all. So we won't stand for that. If George becomes mayor, this will not be acceptable. And thank you. Now, there's a great deal of anxiety among people about the state of the NHS, about the police and the fire brigade and other key essential services that are facing severe cuts. And we were in Willesden Market earlier on this week, and we spoke to this lady who works for the probation service just across the road from there. And she was telling me how the cuts have taken such a toll on the probation service that the reoffender rate in Brent has absolutely skyrocketed. Now, that's not good for anyone. And the NHS is in such a severely bad state at the moment that my illness would have cost me my life if it happened today. It would have cost me my life. I would not have made it because there's not a single accident and emergency unit in the whole of Brent. And that is unacceptable. We shouldn't have to accept it. And the late and great Tony Benn once said, if you've got the money to kill people, you've got the money to help people. Now, our government seems to have plenty of money to go around and bail out bankers. It's got plenty of money to go around and launch new wars and launch new airstrikes in yet another country. But whenever it comes to the key essential public services, they always say, oh, it's austerity, we've got austerity, we can't help out, we don't have the funds. And these problems are just going to multiply and multiply, and it's going to get worse and worse. And we need to make sure that these key public services get the funding they need. They're not luxury, optional extras. These are necessities. We must have them. We can't live without them. We can't do without them. It's not just an extra that we have. And the government needs to know that. The ideologically motivated slashing of public services is what this is. It's not austerity. They've got plenty of money. They're just doing it on an ideological basis. They're dismantling the state help for people. And that's what they're doing. And we will not tolerate this. We will challenge this in a London for All. Now, another issue of great concern at this moment in time is the rising trend of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hate attacks. And I'm ashamed to say that some attacks have taken place in Brent, which is a real concern for myself and many of you here this evening. Racism cannot be tolerated in any shape or form, whether that's Islamophobia or whether that's anti-Semitism or any other kind. We will not tolerate that. And we were in Tottenham earlier this year in August, and we came across leaders of the black community who were protesting against police brutality and institutional racism in the police. And some of the stories and accounts that I heard that day were truly harrowing and shocking. And many of them ended with the deaths of innocent people. People who often had mental health issues, people who had physical disabilities. These people were shot down simply because of the color of their skin. They weren't given a fair chance. This is not acceptable. And no one should have to live through that. These people are still waiting decades later for justice. And in a London for All, we will give them justice, and we will find the perpetrators of these crimes. Now, I know there are many people here today from the private hire trade, and they have huge concerns about the way that TfL is dealing with them. And I'm sure George will be addressing those later on this evening. But I'm going to turn now towards the importance of next May's mayoral election. And I'd like to say this, that in my many conversations with people from all walks of life across London, one theme has been consistent and it's been recurring. And people are sick and tired. People are sick and tired of the disillusionment that they face, the apathy that they face from local councils and from local government. They don't feel that there's any hope left. And that is why we need to make them come and get engaged with this campaign, be interested in this campaign. And that's my goal over the next 5 months. I'm going to get as many people who are disinterested and disengaged with politics, interested and engaged with politics, re-engaged with this campaign in particular. So there are lots of issues for Londoners. Many of them, the Mayor of London can't do anything about specifically, but it's about getting someone like George Galloway in power at the top and changing the whole perspective of government and showing people how it should be done. This will put pressure on local councils and other institutions to change their attitude and change their behavior, because I believe that Londoners are fed up of paying for the crimes of the bankers with austerity. Londoners are fed up of being treated like doormats. Londoners are fed up of not having their voices heard in the corridors of power. And Londoners are fed up of being treated as some kind of ballot fodder in safe seats where their opinions don't matter. It's just one party owns that area and that's it. That's the end of that. We're not going to hear any more of that. I think London and Londoners deserve better. And that's where George Galloway comes in. When I met George Galloway and I spent time with him in his campaign, he showed me that politics is not a job, it's not a career path, it's not a stepping stone for greater wealth or for greater fame. It's a public service. And I've never met a politician who's such a towering figure the world over and such a respected figure the world over. But he's so kind, he's so humble, he's so personable and so approachable. Someone who's ever ready and ever willing to help people in need, ever ready and ever willing to fight for those and be the voice of those who are voiceless, ever ready and ever willing to fight for the working classes, the disenfranchised and the oppressed. Now, I understand there may be some of you here who are Labour Party supporters and feel affinity and loyalty towards the Labour Party. But let me say this to you. George Galloway is not just Labour, he's real Labour. He's more Labour. George Galloway is more Labour than the Labour candidate himself. In fact, he's more Labour than most of Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, and that's a fact. Now, I believe that George Galloway is the clearest anti-austerity candidate in this election. He's also the most principled candidate in this election, and I firmly believe he's the only candidate who will be the voice of the voiceless in the City Hall, just like he's been the voice of the voiceless both in and out of Parliament for decades. And that's why it's important that we get him elected. That's why I believe that Londoners should and will support George Galloway for Mayor of London. And that's why Brent and Harrow should and will support George Galloway for Mayor of London. And that's why I'm proud to stand alongside him in this candidacy. That's why I'm proud to fight for a London for all alongside George Galloway this evening. Thank you very much.